What's up, my ninjas? I'm Strident, and today I am reviewing the McFarlane Assassin's Creed collection. This is from Assassin's Creed Liberation. This is Aveline De Granpre. I picked this figure up kind of just out of the blue. I went actually for the 30th anniversary Ninja Turtles, and then I saw these guys. I saw her and what's the other guy's name? Dwale. And I was like, shit, I'm picking these up. Even though I was afraid of a couple things that I'm going to, that I dealt with other McFarlane releases as of recent. And I'm going to get into more detail with that. But this figure is masterfully sculpted, which is nothing different for any McFarlane figures. You know that you're going to get a good sculpt from these guys. She just kind of falls short in the articulation area, which is, the main thing I was going to get at. But let me go into more detail about that. She's really like, oh man, it's just so many things that they did right when you're just looking at the figure that as soon as you get any deeper than that, you run into problems. But Assassin's Creed is not one of my favorite games. I think I like the first one, and I like some of the ideas, and I like the the moves and the fight system. But there are things that were missed opportunities. You know what I mean? Like lots of missed opportunities. They reneged on their original promise to us when the game was released, and for me, that was a big bummer. It just seemed like the game became one of those properties that fell prey to typical corporate BS. They just spoke and spoke and spoke and spoke, but they did little of what they spoke about. They told us that each Assassin's Creed game was going to take place in a different part of the world, but we've only seen them go to a couple parts of the world, and that's the frustrating part for me. But this design, I love this character design. I love the idea of finally a freaking female assassin. I don't know why it took so damn long. I love the fact that she's got, her portion of the story takes place in kind of what is now, I guess, New Orleans. And I love the fact that there's like awesome attention to detail in this character, despite her background. And the same thing goes for Adwale, who I picked up as well. But I'm kind of having some buyer's remorse. I'm going to keep them because of who they are and what they represent. And you know me, I want the diversity in my characters and whatnot, and this represents that diversity. But once again, I feel like I was swindled because I saw reviews where people said, and I got to learn not to trust anyone else's reviews, except for the people I really trust if they happen to get figures that I am actually looking at. Because you guys on YouTube, a lot of you so-called reviewers, you suck at the job. There's no other way to put it. I watched a guy review this figure, and he said, everything is, all the parts are really well articulated, but I noticed that he didn't move the legs at all. I thought, hey, let me just give him a chance and ignore it, because maybe it does, everything does work. And, he's not just glossing over something. So I get the figure only to see that it's the same syndrome. This figure, as awesome as everything you see here is, it also suffers from the same syndrome as the Walking Dead figures. She pretty much can't, her legs can't really do much. You'd expect an assassin who's flipping around and doing, kicks and all the crazy agile shit that you see them do. You'd expect her to at least be able to do, this much of a split like Adora right here, right? Does that make sense to you guys? Woo! But, you'd expect to be able to at least bend her knees, maybe this much, so you could get like a lunging kind of pose, with her machete or something, but you can barely do that.
I don't know what it is about McFarlane figures these days and this strange lack of articulation. I saw a couple Walking Dead figures that have better articulation, but I mean, I'm asking for that, right? I'm going to try my best to emulate that with this figure. This is as far apart as her legs go. Does that look like the same thing? That's it. In the game, they do all this agile shit. You know, they're so agile and so, you know, nimble. I was expecting to be able to do that with them. But no, I'm not allowed to, because McFarlane and Ubisoft obviously doesn't give a shit. They just want the money. They didn't articulate them. They didn't do anything. Their arms are okay. You know, I don't have problems with the arms. The arms are beautiful. The whole figure is beautiful if we're talking aesthetics, just aesthetics, but that's always the case with McFarlane figures, and that's what pisses me the fuck off with these figures. I love all the detailing on this figure. The accessories are straight from the game, so, you know, I can't complain about that. But there's weird little things that they did with her that they didn't do with some of the other characters, or like some of the Walking Dead figures can do, but she can't do. And I'm like, why is it that they didn't sit down and find a way to engineer the figure so that it's capable of doing, you know, more than a fucking Halo figure could do? You know what I'm saying? Considering what these characters entail, who they are, and what their position is in, you know, both in the gaming canon, you know, as far as their story, and just as assassins. You see them doing parkour, you see them doing flips and all these cool things, and I can't really get them to do that. And that bothers me. It actually frustrates me, and it makes me a little angry, because I feel gypped when that's the situation. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody by using that word, but I really do feel taken advantage of when I get a figure and it's boasting articulation and shit on the package, you know. 20-something, well, how many points of articulation does it say? Oh, they don't even have it on the package anymore. I guess because this is the problem. This has been the problem with these figures. But I hate that shit, you know. There was a point in time where, you know, they told you kind of the truth about your figure, and, you know. Anyway, I'll try and focus on the good stuff. The good stuff is she is filled to the brim, I'll use my pencil, with detail. I mean, it's ridiculous. I took pictures up close, but I mean, the belt buckle is nice. The little red sash that she's got on has a pattern on it, and that's beautiful. Her boots, they're beautifully painted with kind of a nice weathering kind of effect on them. I mean, everything just looks like a different material, and that's the most awesome thing. And that's what I point out when I was comparing, you know, the Return of Marvel Legends to original Marvel Legends to, you know, all these other figure lines, where I'm like, you know, we only need a little bit of paint to give us the idea of weathering. I mean, look at this Sabretooth figure, and look at how he's got dry brushing, and he's got wrinkles built into, or, you know, sculpted into his suit, so it makes the suit look more real, like a suit, you know. So it doesn't look like you just painted this naked guy with those colors, you know what I'm saying? I've shown you Masters of the Universe figures that were like that, you know. It's what I love about McFarlane's team. Their painting skills are just ridiculous, you know. And it's a $13.99 figure, which is cheaper than both DCUC figures and your Marvel Legends figures. So considering that, and the only big difference between those and this is they're a little smaller, in some cases a lot smaller, and the lack of articulation in the legs. So it's kind of strange that McFarlane can do that, and they have been doing that for years. But DC and Marvel and whatever, you know, Mattel and Hasbro can't do that. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to get on to the positives. Positives, she has a shitload of accessories. She has her trusty whip. Now, I'm going to be straight up. I didn't play any of these games because I'm not a fan of Assassin's Creed. But I do like the games, and I have friends who have them, so I've watched people play. But the whip is awesome. She can hold that with no problem. She comes with her machete and the blowpipe, or blowgun, whatever you want to call it. You see them on the side, and they actually, you can remove them and she can actually hold them. The blowgun actually sits in there really tight, so it's actually difficult to get it in there. You kind of have to spin it around to get it to stay in. A lot of these weapons, when you're trying to put them in their hands, you have to work them in there. They don't just fit, and they don't fit the right way. Like, you got to put them in backwards and then twist them around in order to get them to do what they're supposed to do. And that's a little annoying, because, you know, you should just be able to put the freaking weapon in their hands. But and also one of the things to look out for is, if you look at her hands, actually from where I am blocking the light. You look at her hands, her sleeve was sculpted. Actually, let me stand her up and just move the camera closer so you can see it. I also have issues with her legs, but, you know, like just what we are given as far as articulation. But if you look at her arm, there is the sleeve goes all the way up to where her thumb is. I don't know why it's not focusing. Jesus, focus. And it kind of hinders the ability to hold things properly. But so there she is holding her machete. So you can kind of get her in her like Eskrima / Arness kind of poses if you want, because, you know, those of us who do martial arts, we know that's where they got a lot of those movements from. I'm not going to take the blowpipe out. I don't feel like doing that, but it is removable. She has the hidden blade, both versions, the, you know, extended and the retracted, which I think is pretty awesome. I don't see the need for them to have to come up with a way to recreate that motion in, you know, this scale. That would just be kind of ridiculous, and it would be a little much in my opinion. But here it is, retracted. Pretty nice, right? I like it. Hopefully you guys can see that. And I apologize if it's not the clearest. And then here it is extended. They fit in perfectly. It's a peg system that you use to hold them in. It's pretty nice. I was kind of surprised because I didn't expect there to be a separate, you know, like two separate, you know, well painted pieces. I kind of expected only one, like the extended version. But there it is, extended, which I think is pretty damn nice. They did a pretty good job with that, you know. So like, what bothers me though, and I keep having to get back to this. Actually, before I get to that, I'll say I'll point out one of the other weapons that she has that is removable as well, and that is her flintlock pistol. And it's kind of nice seeing all these old school weapons, you know. I know my weapons. It's kind of funny when you're watching reviews on YouTube and people are like, he's got a shotgun and she's got her pistol, her random pistol. I'm like, you know, it's a fucking flintlock. There's a difference. I mean, yeah, by today's standards we would refer to this as a pistol because it's a small arm, and it makes sense, you know, small arms they're considered, but it's a flintlock. And it's really nicely detailed, you know, but it's McFarlane, so we expect that. Her hat also, and you can tell from the pictures, is removable, so you can take the hat off. But like I said, my gripe is with her articulation in the legs. I'm trying my best to move them as far apart, as far forward as possible, and this is the best I can get out of them. And it bothers me immensely. I almost am afraid to open Adwale because I feel like all the badass shit that I've seen him do, I won't even be able to begin to emulate anything but walking because he doesn't have any fucking posability. I can make him stand like a badass, you know, but that's it. This is the best I can do with her to make her look dynamic. It's a $13, $14 figure, you know what I mean? I'm like, those new Ninja Turtles that they just came out with, I can do more with them, and they have less articulation. I can do more with them. People bitch about the freaking, their lack of wrist joints, but you don't need them, you know? You don't need them to pull off the kind of poses that would make them look kind of badass and, you know, official. And I mean, look at this. Here's a fucking Ninja Turtle with like no articulation. What's he got, like 6 points of articulation or some shit? And look at how much more dynamic he looks in comparison to this with all that nice paint and shit. This is why I fucking hate American toys. I've come to that conclusion. I have issues with American toys because there's always this mediocrity. And it's like, you know, you could go the extra mile and just, you know, wow us. You know, you could actually try. Or you could just do what you've been doing because you know you're going to make money and then make money. And that's what pisses me off about these companies, especially McFarlane. I mean, this is the company that gave us freaking the Solid Snake from Metal Gear 2 that was almost fully articulated. They're the same guys who gave us all those Halo figures that were fully articulated. You know, what's the deal? Why is it that I can grab, hold on just a second so I can grab and show you what I'm talking about, because I have one of those Halo guys kind of out and about. He's kind of busted. This is one of the ones my son plays with, but I'm just using him as a visual aid. Why is it that a Halo Reach figure, they don't kick shit in that game, you know? Maybe they might kick for one of the kills, the stealth kills, but why is it my Halo Reach figure can do all this and my Assassin's Creed figure can only do that? Like, what? How does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? And like, all you motherfuckers reviewing these things, you're not saying anything. And that's my biggest gripe with YouTube reviewers. Even the small ones that aren't in the pocket of some company. Your whole purpose for doing a review is to show us what we're gonna get. You show us what it can do. It's exactly why you got the fucking figure. You got the figure so you could pose it and you can show us what it's capable of and what it's not capable of. And by doing so, you help inform people and you help us decide, those of us who are on the fence about a figure or those of us who, you know, we just don't know. You help us decide what we're going to do, if we're going to get the figure based on what we saw. By holding back information or ignoring or glossing over information, you only do us a disservice and you do yourself a disservice as a reviewer. So honestly, she's gonna serve the purpose of kind of a statue or a stand-in or something, you know, just someone kind of in the background. I love the design and that's why I have the figure. But I kind of feel like they're doing us a disservice by not figuring out a way to engineer these legs to do more than they do. I already told you guys with the Walking Dead figures, fuck those figures. There's nothing about them other than the fact that they come from The Walking Dead that warrants that purchase. They're not good figures. They don't look that great. I mean, they look, a lot of them look like the actors and stuff and actresses, but like, that's it. It begins and ends there. They're not figures. They're pretty much still statues. McFarlane can do more than statues. They've proven that to us several times, you know, over. So why not just do the thing the right fucking way so that we can, you know, enjoy the figure more, you know? Like, I can't make her do a lot of the things that I've seen her do in the show. And, you know, I move over to my Japanese figures. Shit, you move over to fucking Transformers. I have Transformers that are more posable than this toy. I mean, Optimus Prime doesn't do split kicks and shit and doesn't do backflips and all that. But this toy that turns into a fucking truck, he can do a split. It's fucking ridiculous. Optimus can do a split and look thorough and, you know, do all that kind of shit. And he doesn't need to. It's just like, you know, that's the ability, that's the full range of his motion. And I like that, you know what I'm saying? But my assassin from Assassin's Creed, where they're doing flips and kung fu moves and shit like that, they can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I can put Optimus in dynamic poses, you know, like real dynamic poses with his legs kind of splayed out crazy, like, you know, like, oh my god, something's coming, you know? Oh, I'm sorry. Making this look really, really bad right now, but here's what I'm talking about as far as his pose, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh my god, what is that? Autobots, prepare for battle. And it looks cool, right? It looks like he's really doing something, and it took me 2 seconds to do that, right? Then you see me fiddling with this figure for, you know, a couple minutes to get the legs to move out as far as they can without me breaking them, and then I can only do the pose that she's in. And then on top of that, they didn't use a very pliable plastic for her tunic. So the part hanging down, the part of the tunic that's hanging down in front, it kind of hinders the articulation, and that's always frustrating when you have such a great sculpt. So, you know, on some levels this figure is worth the purchase, on others it's not. If you are a fan of Assassin's Creed, if you are a fan of Aveline, then you probably should get this figure because it represents a character of color that was given the attention to detail that all the other characters in the series have been given. Wow, thank you. I'm trying to give you props and you fall down in my fucking review. This is what I'm talking about. Ugh. But if you don't really give a shit about Assassin's Creed and you don't really give a shit about, you know, a period character that represents, you know, some of the diversity in American history, especially in like action game form, then, you know, don't worry about it. You're not really missing out on too much. There are better figures out there. Get another Storm figure, get another, you know, I don't know. There's other shit out there that you could get that would do the job just as well, you know. This figure was $13, so it didn't break the bank at all, you know. I was out actually shopping for stuff for my wife, and I saw her and Adwale, and I was like, holy shit. I love those designs. I'm like, I had all 4 turtles in my hands, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put back the turtles, and I'm going to pick up these guys. And I kind of feel like I should have picked up the turtles instead, because the freaking turtles figures are dope. Like, even though they're lacking in some, you know, the wrist articulation, I can still do a lot with them, you know? And even with the cross-hatching looking like bites out of their actual, you know, sculpt, I can do things with them.
Here's just a quick look at Leonardo. And like I said, they look good, and look how dynamic he's standing. Now this is just a little, you know, segue into my next part.
So here's something I like to imagine when I'm collecting these kind of figures is, you know how when you play those old games like Dungeons and Dragons, Shadow over Mystera, and Tower of Doom and all that shit, and Golden Axe, they always have like, you know, the fighter, and then they have the cleric, and the thief or assassin, you know, and the archer, and then, you know, the magic user or magic you, as they put in the Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystera, and of course the dwarf. I like to imagine that, you know, I'm kind of collecting towards that kind of a setup, you know what I'm saying? So, and I have obviously different fighters, you know, because I have a lot of like He-Man shit. But, you know, my magic user, sometimes that also varies. I'm actually looking into finding a Gandalf from the Toy Biz days. So if anyone has one and you want to trade for, you know, a Joe or something, let me know. We'll see what we can work out. Or if you want to sell it for a decent price, then, you know, maybe I'll be able to do that. But yeah, I imagine that because, you know, you look at the paint jobs on these figures and they look like they could exist in the same world. Obviously, it's got to be some kind of fantasy world. It can't be the real world. And I know where they come from, so I don't want to see some jack off in the comments saying, but Strident, they're from the really real world. You know what? you can really, really suck a fat dick. You know, don't waste the time. But this is kind of, you know, it's fun to do that, to see them together in that kind of way. I was actually hoping to do Adwale first so I could put him in the mix, but, you know, whatever. I might do his review separate as well. But overall, like I said, you know, she's a fun toy. She looks really good. If you can get past the fucked up legs, then you can easily just, you know, do what you got to do. Pose her, play with her, whatever. Just look at her, because it's very, you know, beautiful figure. Not just because she's a female, just because of all the sculpting and whatnot. So, anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm Strident. This has been my review of
Aveline De Granpre from Assassin's Creed Liberation. And I think she's downloadable content in Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Like I said, it's a nice figure. If you get around to it and you see her and you can get past the lack of articulation, then just pick her up. So anyway, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace outside.